Theresa, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
It's great to be here, Neta. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I always love to start the episode by letting the audience get to know our guests a little bit. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and take us back to high school. Who was Theresa in high school?
Oh, Teresa in high school. Man, that does take me back a few years because I'm far from that. But well, I was kind of in a little bit of a hippie phase. I was playing guitar. I was singing in a band. I was experimenting with all the different boundaries that my life had. And I was always a pretty big dreamer. Always had some pretty big aspirations. By the end of high school, I was doing Miss America pageants and things like that, and kind
Oh,
of growing,
cool.
blossoming in different ways and growing in confidence. And yeah, there was still a ways to go. There still is now too. But high school was a fun time. I remember high school as fun, not necessarily because of the high school part of it. I ended up leaving high school early to go to college early because academically it was kind of boring for me. And I didn't have a huge like high school friend group as far as like being super popular, but I was very into my own creative interests and very into the whole little world that was kind of unfolding in front of me, and the close circle of friends that I had, my boyfriend at the time, that kind of stuff was all really important to me. And I was very ambitious. I was, working and managing stores, and then in banking, and doing like part-time work as soon as I could, and growing from there. So there was a lot of cool things that started in high school for me. So thank you for bringing me back to that time and that girl that I was.
Why do you think? Because I'm always fascinated when people are in high school to hear their story. For you, why do you think you were so ambitious at that age? What cultivated that?
I think that that entrepreneurial spirit has kind of always been in me. And I think combine that with the ADHD brain and always just wanting to try different things and see what happens when I do and experiment. And that kind of all came together in ambition for me. And I've always like loved money. So that that didn't hurt either. Everybody like, okay, so how can I start to have this life of my own and, make money and do these things and fulfill these dreams? I think all of that kind of fueled it.
Okay, not and were you an only child, or you had a large family, small family?
No, I'm the youngest in my family. I have an older sister who's almost 10 years older than me. So
Wow.
it's kind of like being an only child because
Yeah,
by the time I was, in fourth or fifth grade, she was off to college, and then it was pretty much just me almost. So we each got our only childhoods.
I love that. Okay, so you went from being in a band to being in a pageant or doing pageant work, which is interesting. So tell us how you got into the work that you do today. What was your journey of becoming more me, and how'd you get to that path?
Absolutely. So after high school and during college, actually, I ended up having a pretty bad car accident. The car was actually pretty fine. I was the one that had the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of repair needed, and a lot of time and a lot of trauma and things that I had to go through. So I went from having a great job at the bank and this kind of thought plan for my future of how things were going to unfold to being on disability and having the life that I planned for myself really turned on my head. And from that place, my own confidence and my own sense of self and worthiness and things really got eroded away. I had been a pretty confident person coming up. And then this thing happened, and it's kind of like, well, now what and what happens? And from that place, I ended up getting into a relationship that became my first marriage. And, when you were on my show, we were talking a little bit about ignoring intuition around that time. I did the same thing, and I ignored my intuition and ended up having my first child in that marriage and getting divorced about a year after that in a long process. And during all of that entrepreneurial spirit stayed alive. I had my own like handmade soap business, handmade candles. I did all sorts of different types of coaching and things. And then it was kind of another low point going through the divorce. And then coming back out of that, I ended up meeting my now husband, and we've been together about 19 years now. I've had
Wow.
3 boys and continued coaching through that time. So I've been coaching people in different ways for over 25 years at this point. And it grew for me after having, 4 kids and wanting to, feel healthier and more fit again and everything else after having all those kids. I did a lot of nutrition and fitness coaching. That was kind of the basis for where my coaching really grew a lot. And when I actually had the time and the traction to be able to grow a business while also raising a family in the way that I wanted to. And then it got to the point where I realized, not just with myself, but with most of typically it was women that I was working with, that I was coaching at the time. You know how people are when it comes to working out and food and fitness and nutrition. A lot of times we get in our own way, we self-sabotage, we're not showing up to do the workouts or to follow through and to be that person, become that person that we need to be to get the result that we want. And for me, it became that point where I knew that there was deeper work needed than just a meal plan and a workout program and some accountability. And that is when I really got fascinated with the nervous system, the subconscious mind, and making breakthroughs there. It's also around the same time that I was really noticing the ADHD that I was experiencing, because for me, that was always just increased creativity. It was like a superpower. But as I got a little bit older and as I had more children than I had hands and a couple of businesses too and everything else, the distraction factor really amped up for me. And I needed to figure out how to take all the stuff I'd been accumulating, all the knowledge I'd been accumulating, and take action on it. And I was finding myself up against that imaginary wall, like a lot of people do, where you know better, but you still aren't doing better. So for me, learning about the subconscious, learning about the nervous system created action in my life, and in turning the knowledge that I'd collected into action that got the results that I wanted, and also found that it was doing the same thing for the people that I had been coaching. So I went from doing, I guess, what you would consider more like superficial type coaching and helping with that outer health and fitness and stuff, to more of the deep stuff, and where I've seen the biggest shifts happening in my clients and myself that really elevates success for people and feeling good. And from there, it grew into how do I want that success to feel? Because I had been raised in such a feeling of success being hustling and striving and pushing and that masculine energy all day long.
All day
And
long.
yeah, and I knew that wasn't how I was going to, what got you here won't get you there kind of thing. And I knew that. So yes, I created a bunch of success with that masculine energy. And now I wanted to have pleasure fueled feminine abundance and success. So learning how to bring pleasure into all the things that I was doing and use that as fuel to really accelerate the results that I was getting and my clients were getting. So I've landed here.
I have a couple questions for you, because I just had it more from a curious place. So I heard you mention, you were doing a lot of things. You're a mom, entrepreneur, wife, all these things. And then you mentioned the ADHD factor for yourself. So can you explain like how you understood the difference between having ADHD versus just having a lot on your plate and being distracted because there's a lot on your plate? How did you identify that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And sometimes the difference really doesn't matter because we're all just busy and distracted these days. But for me, I have 4 boys, and all of them that were old enough to be diagnosed at the time that I was diagnosed had been. And so I had spent a lot of time in doctor's offices and filling out all the things and going through the testing with them and everything else. And I also, my initial degree in college is in psychology, and I have a lot of understanding there too. So I knew the basics of it, but I hadn't yet kind of thrown myself into the ring for a diagnosis. So I was just kind of going off of like, I'm pretty sure this is going on. But after they had all been diagnosed, I got diagnosed, and I really started to see those differences and the resistance and things that come up a lot more with the ADHD and the way that kind of position myself against things. But I think too, that, understanding the difference was about realizing that distraction is often like situational, but
Yep.
ADHD is like a deeper pattern that's tied to nervous system regulation, that's tied to executive
Yeah.
function, and being able to separate that out. I think that might answer your question.
Yeah, no, it did. Thank you so much. I wanted to clarify for the audience because you're doing so much that in my brain, I'm like, well, you just got a lot going on. But
Really, probably why I didn't get diagnosed until I was 42, and I'm 47 now. And in retrospect, I probably should have also been getting diagnosed for hormonal changes and imbalances at that time, because that was really like a precipice of like the hormone shifts really starting to happen from like perimenopause, and that exacerbates ADHD like crazy for a lot of women. So, but nobody brought that up at any of my appointments when I went in saying, man, the distraction is like worse than ever right now. What's going
Yep.
on? And
Yep.
how can we approach this? So I've done a lot of work trying to bring awareness to that, because I think a lot of women are either getting misdiagnosed with ADHD because their hormones are getting overlooked. I think that's happening a lot.
Yeah. So tell me, so you have the book Becoming More Me, right? How to tap into success. Why, tell me about the book a little bit. Why Becoming More Me? Where did that come from? And what does success look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is a lot about my own journey. And interestingly enough, the book became a little bit about writing the book too, because the book itself was a journey that I started writing and kept getting in my own way, in that ADHD way, over and over again. And then I took about a year in 2022 where I used my best practices. I used, EFT tapping and used hypnotherapy. And I kind of just released the idea of this book happening in the way that I had imagined, because it felt like I kept stepping back into that masculine energy. And I did not want to write the book with that energy. I did not want it to land that way. So I let go of it. I spent that whole year just doing interviews like this with you, really getting clear on who I was talking to and what I really wanted to feel and create in my business. And then it got a lot clearer. And when I started writing the book again, I first of all made sure that I had support, my publisher and editing team and all those different people that held me accountable to deadlines and things that can be a little bit slippery sometimes when you're an ADHD brain. And I also made sure that I was writing that book through the lens of pleasure. I actually did my work with Mama Regina Thomashower. I'm not sure if you know who that is, during that time, and was fully immersed in her pleasure boot camp and everything else while I wrote the book. And that really grounded me in the vibration and the energy that I wanted to come through in the book. And that was kind of what came through as I wrote it. And the book explains hypnotherapy. It explains EFT tapping. It explains why our nervous systems get in the way, even when we have big goals and we truly want change for ourselves. It explains how ADHD is intermingled in all of that. It has a lot of actionable exercises and things that actually get results for people. And I think it helps people to really feel seen, because the story is pretty relatable and something that a lot of the people that definitely resonate with what I do can appreciate. So it accomplished what I intended it to.
Talk to us a little bit about the nervous system. So I want people to understand, what is the nervous system for our audience, just so that they can hear it. Most of them would know what it is from our company, but I think it's good to hear from your perspective. And then how can it serve you, or how can it sabotage you?
Yeah, very good question. So what I help people with a lot is nervous system capacity. So the nervous system itself it's like the command center for how we experience and process and respond to the world around us, right? So it's going to be governing everything from stress responses to the ability to feel safe and creative and focused. So for high achievers, like the people that you're working with all the time, and me too, the nervous system can either keep you stuck in these cycles of fight, flight, freeze. And I personally believe there's a few other F's in there, not of all of which I will mention on the show, but it can be your greatest asset also. So when it's regulated, it's creating that foundation for clarity, for calm, for confidence, which we know is so important. And that allows you to make better decisions. It allows you to lead more effectively, and it allows you to show up more fully as yourself. So it's not just about like mindset or strategy. It's about tending to the system that drives that capacity that you have to thrive. And it's usually a missing piece for a lot of people, because a lot of people have gotten coaching strategy, or they know the how-tos or the steps to do what they want to do, but then they still end up getting in their own way because the body and the mind don't feel safe with that change. And it's really interesting, the little things they kind of throw out in front of you that keep you a little stuck or moving a little slower than you want to along the way.
Interesting. Okay. So how does somebody regulate their nervous system?
Question. So there's a lot of ways that you can regulate your nervous system. My favorite way is EFT tapping. And that combines ancient Chinese principles, ancient Chinese medicine, with the meridian endpoints of our body, the same places where if you went to have acupuncture or deep tissue massage, they'd be putting the needles or pressing in deeply to release energetic blockages, essentially. And it also combines modern psychology. So we put those two things together to release energetic blockages. And it might sound strange, but the energy being blocked in our system is the reason for every dis-ease that we or experience. So whether that is physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, the energy, when you can get it flowing in the right direction, we feel better. And there's so much ability for things to change from the way that they are now to the way that you want them to be. So that EFT tapping is a very quick, very easy, very available way to regulate your nervous system, and also an amazing way to lower your cortisol. So the big stress hormone that so many people have elevated almost all the time these days because their fight or flight cycles are so frequent. I
Yeah.
mean, we need to appreciate that the nervous system has that ability to respond when we are
Yep.
actually in danger and alert us. But we are not in actual danger like 24/7 the way our
We
bodies are
used to be. Yeah, the
to.
way we used to be.
Sure.
So I have a question for you because, a lot of the individuals that listen to our podcast are either in the corporate space, executives, leaders, or they're entrepreneurs running their business and dealing with clients. Can you share a practical strategy to regulate your nervous system when you're in the moment? Let's say you're in a conference room with a room full of leaders and you can just feel your mind and your body go into a fight or flight stage. Maybe you get triggered. Can you share something that's practical in that room that they can do to kind of bring them back down and tap into that emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. So we have meridian endpoints on the sides of our fingers, like on either side of our nail bed. If you were to like just pinch your fingers on the sides there, that is a great way to release energy. It's one of the strategies that, again, for corporate, like in the boardroom kind of situation, or in like high conflict situations, if you're going through mediation, divorce, that kind of thing, where you're in, and you don't want to be like sitting there doing actual EFT tapping and talking to yourself and things like that you can't really do in the moment. You can simply think about the issue that you're having, whatever that is, and just kind of you're pinching in on the sides of your thumb, your forefinger, middle finger, your ring finger, your pinky, just a couple of squeezes on each of them, and just rotate through and just kind of bring top of mind whatever the emotion or the trigger is that you're feeling. And breathe as you're doing it. However, that's normal in the situation. If you can take some nice deep inhales and some good slow exhales, that can definitely help to regulate in the moment. And that's something that you can easily do because you can kind of get your hand under the table where nobody's going to quite see what you're doing. And you can get a lot of relief that way in a short period of time, like 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, I love that because I know that for a lot of our clients, there's times where they're in the middle of something and you can't just walk out of the room or explode, obviously. Like we got to be able to manage it in that moment. So thank you for that tip. That was very helpful.
Kind of like the Band-Aid, right?
Yeah.
So in the moment, something's going on, you need something. We're not really getting to the root of whatever the issue was. If you were triggered by something, it's going to be much more helpful.
Sure.
And then take a deeper dive at another time into clearing out the root of the cause for the trigger. But yes, in the moment, you can get that Band-Aid. If you had a cut or a wound, you never deny yourself a Band-Aid. So this is a Band-Aid for in the moment. But then I definitely recommend when the time and the opportunity presents itself, go deeper so that then you don't have that trigger that you have to worry about in the moment at a later time.
I love that. Theresa, thank you for joining us. I want to jump into the power section of the interview and ask you some rapid fire questions. Yes. So if you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget. What would that be for you?
Oh, this is rapid fire. Let's see. One final message is that you are enough. I think that is the biggest thing, because I think that's one of the things that so many people think they aren't. And we all were already born enough. We're already worthy, whatever it is that we desire in this world. So I think that would be the message. You are enough.
Great. And as you know, Theresa, our main thing is soft skills. So helping individuals and entrepreneurs, organizations elevate their performance through the skills that we often don't get taught. Can you remember a time where maybe you didn't tap into your soft skills and the outcome was not an outcome that was pleasurable for you, or maybe it went into a wrong direction? Do you remember a time where you think, I could have used more soft skills here, and because of it, this was the challenge that occurred?
Absolutely. Probably my divorce. I wish I had the skills that I'm able to impart to other people going through that now, because I didn't have that. I was much more reactive, and it definitely escalated situations that could have been a lot easier. And it also got me attached to different stories of that time for longer than I needed to be, that shaped an identity that was never mine in the first place.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And final question, but But before I ask, tell the audience where we can learn more about you. How do we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty easy to find by my name, Theresa Lear Levine. It's Theresa with an H. So Instagram, YouTube at Theresa Lear Levine. I also have an amazing free community on the platform known as School, which is SKOOL for anyone who's not familiar. There's a link in my bio on Instagram as well as in most of my YouTube videos. But if you happen to be on the School platform, you can just search on the discovery page for Theresa Lear Levine and you will find the Becoming More Me community. It houses over, $10,000 or $15,000 worth of valuable resources, tapping videos, hypnotic audios, as well as I do a free live workshop every month. So you can sign up for that and actually attend live with me and, get coached in the moment. And, if somebody's looking to go deeper with any of this, you can always go to gamechangingconversation.com where you can apply to have a call with me. I will give you as many insights as I can and help you connect the dots to get from where you are now to where you want to be and how you want to feel.
Very good. Thank you for all that. And we'll make sure we put that in the show notes. Final question is, as you know, we are Rise Up for You. What comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
Lightness is what comes to mind first. And it's probably because of the word rise and just really stepping into authenticity. That is what just comes to mind when I picture that.
I love that. Theresa, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rise Up for You podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nada.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for joining the Rise Up for You podcast. Every single week, we are bringing you brand new episodes to help you elevate yourself, your business, your organization. And we have amazing leaders that are helping us do that. I will see you on the next episode. And don't forget, the greatest tragedy is wasted human potential. Do not let that be your story. I'll see you next time. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and check us out on social media. We are everywhere from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook at our simple handle at Rise Up For You. On every single platform, it's exactly the same. And we're providing new content on every single platform. So there's something different everywhere. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, and connect with us on social media. I'll see you next time.